start the recording. And here we go. And, okay. Did I start the recording? Yes. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our conference sponsors for their support. So the San Jose State University School of Information and the California Libraries Learn for their support for the conference today.
Eric, we did have your sound sort of coming in and out there briefly.
Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to unplug these headphones. Can you still hear me? Okay. All right. So again, my name is Eric Tanz, and I am the Science Collections Coordinator and the Environmental Sciences Librarian at Michigan State University. And I am joined by my colleague and co-presenter, Terence O'Neill, the head of Digital Scholarship Services, also at the Michigan State University Library. And today we're going to be introducing you to the Sustainability Canvas, a project planning tool that we developed with two of our colleagues, Stephanie Perentesis and Sarah Klimek, for use in developing library sustainability projects. So we are going to share a little bit about the background, some background information, and then also provide a little bit of time for some hands-on experiences, conceptualizing the tool and using the tool to think about a sustainability project. So let's jump right in and get started. So we'll start with discussing some of the context of sustainability at Michigan State University and the libraries. At the libraries, there is a library environmental committee. Terence and I are both members of this committee. The mission of that committee is to conserve resources through educating staff and collaborating with campus partners and improving library policies and facilities in order to improve the sustainability of the library. Now this committee, its initial iteration started in the early 1980s with recycling print newspapers and was one of the earliest sustainability initiatives on MSU's campus. Speaking of collaborating with campus partners, one such partnership more recently was developing a composting program. This happened a few years ago with our library cafe and the staff at the library, at the MSU Recycling Center and Surplus Store. And we'll be using some of the details from that collaboration in an example that we discuss when looking at the sustainability campus or canvas later on. So that's the context that we come from. And I'm going to hand it over to Terence to talk a little bit about the background of the sustainability.
Great, thank you, Eric. So the Library Environmental Committee launches initiatives on a regular basis. And they approached me back when I was working as an entrepreneurship librarian because I was talking a lot about something used in entrepreneurship communities to help plan out new business ventures. Called the Business Model Canvas. The Business Model Canvas is based on the work of Alexander Osterwalder, who was analyzing innovation in information technology companies and basically isolated these 9 key areas that a coherent, effective business model for these IT companies, that they needed to make sure that all of these areas were addressed and that all of the areas were sort of reflected a coherent plan. So if you changed one area, it would kind of tweak the other thing. And building on that research work, he partnered with some other folks, including graphic designers, to come up with a graphic organizer that encouraged people who were thinking of new ventures to consider these 9 areas and to jot them down. And so I've done a lot of work bringing this approach to lots of different audiences, but many people find that it's, unnecessary and not all plans need all 9 areas. But the advantages of this approach are that it gets people to put down their ideas, particularly when you don't know exactly what the solution is going to be. And that you have to put something in all 4 or 9 of the areas, and that it emphasizes kind of a coherent approach, so that if you switch one thing, it changes another. And in many cases, we encourage using the BMC or using the sustainability canvas in an iterative way, so that you're writing down your assumptions, you're writing down your first thoughts on how to approach this venture, but that as you learn more about the situation, as you talk to potential partners, you're scratching things out and updating it. So it's meant to be a sort of low cost, low barrier way to begin planning your idea out. So that's what we'd like to bring to you today. So the sustainability canvas, as I said, it's built on this business model canvas, but it's simplified. Eric, could you go to the next slide, please? So that you're only looking at 4 specific areas. So the sustainability canvas isolates only 4 areas. So when we look at the actual, this is the canvas, this is it. And obviously these are all things that you should be considering as you're launching a new project. So that's what we'd like to bring this to you today in this activity, is to get you to begin using this for something that you're considering doing already. So this top line here, the sustainability proposal, this is what you're actually considering doing. So it can be a short description, but as you kind of build it out, the more detail you put in, the better. On the bottom left here, the key partners, you could think of these as stakeholders. You could think of these as the organizations or the other people that are kind of in the system and that you'll need to interact with, and that you would really love buy-in as you consider your project. The bottom middle one here, target participants, in other versions you might see this as your sort of customer base. These are the groups or individuals who are going to most directly interact with your proposal, and they're going to choose whether or not to change their behavior. They're going to choose whether or not to enact what you're proposing. So they're the people that are going to actively do the thing or not do the thing in their day-to-day life. And then this last segment here is metrics for success. So how are you going to measure whether your solution was successful? And this may not be, like you may not be able to measure the ultimate outcome, but how can you get some numbers, get some data? What can you track to get a sense of whether or not it's working? So these are the 4 areas. And what we did is we applied this approach to the compost planning process. So to give you an example of how this might break down, so the sustainability proposal is very simple, you know, bringing composting to the library. And we started thinking about the key partners. You know, we knew we needed to have, as Eric mentioned, MSU Recycling on board because they were going to be taking the compost. We knew that Sparty's Cafe made sense because that's the place where everybody was eating and bringing their food already. And potentially Sparty's Cafe could make this more successful or less successful depending upon some choices they were making. Custodial, we obviously wanted to be good partners with the people that are responsible for keeping our spaces clean and making sure that it wasn't confusing to them, that it made sense to them. They're the experts really in all other forms of waste flowing through the library. And then MSU library leadership is obviously critical, but they're not the target participant. Even though key partners identifies MSU library leadership, they can say yes or no to letting us go ahead and do it, but they're not the people that are going to choose whether or not to do it on a day-to-day basis. So that's who you really want to isolate with the target participants. And in this case, it was going to be people who are using Sparty's Cafe, but also, you know, library diners, so students, staff, the people that were going to be eating and choosing what to do with, you know, their food waste, with their apple cores. And for metrics for success, this project worked out really well here because we knew we could get this data. So decrease in food entering the trash stream and decrease in new compost, or an increase in compost coming from the library, from 0 to more than 0. And this, knowing that these metrics were possible, was a product of already partnering with MSU Recycling and kind of knowing what kinds of data they were already tracking. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Eric here, but we'd like to spend the bulk of the rest of the time practicing this.
All right, thanks, Terence. So I just posted to the chat a link to where you can download a Word document copy of the sustainability canvas. So if you can follow that link, you'll be able to access a copy, an electronic copy of the sustainability canvas. And once you have that document open, we'd like to ask you to take some time to maybe think about a project that you would be interested in pursuing within your own institution, and try to fill it in as best that you can. If you have any questions for the next few minutes, feel free to post them to the chat, and we can address them as they come in. And after about 10 minutes or so, then we'll come back together and do a little bit of a regroup talking about that. So if you have if there are any questions, feel free to type them in, but otherwise, please go ahead and get started. So there's a question about what happened to the sound. So we're not talking right now. We do need some music. You're right, Melanie. That would be good. We're hoping that people can focus on working on filling out their canvas. Let's see, I could maybe try to play some music. Although with sharing my screen, I don't know if I could get to a music player. But there is a way to share computer sound.
Hi, Eric. If you just go to your microphone and then you do the select a same as system, that should work. That should hopefully work.
Okay.
We'll try it.
So the microphone, the system. I'll need to pause sharing my screen for a second.
Eric, it looks like we're having some countervailing votes for silence is good. So I think if people are interested in music, I love music. I'm going to recommend Soma.fm. Has a range of incredible channels for ambient, work appropriate music. So thank you for all your suggestions.
For those, it looks like some people just joined the room. So we're in the middle of doing a hands-on activity where if you follow the link that I just provided in the chat, you can download our sustainability canvas that we are presenting on today. It's a project planning tool for developing sustainability projects within your library. And we're having everyone fill out a copy, a digital copy as part of the program. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to post them to the chat.
So I'm getting a question about whether or not filling this out is mandatory and there is no grade attached to your participation today. But also a part of the presentation that we cut was, well, how do you generate these ideas in the first place? And that can be a useful preceding exercise, is creating something of a bug list and just going around your library and kind of thinking about what bugs you, you know, like, oh, what could we improve in terms of sustainability? So if you're kind of not ready for the proposal yet, you might just kind of brainstorm what are problems. Eric, you've gone out of, right, your screen presentation.
All right, so I think that we can wrap up the activity portion for those of you who filled in a version of the Canvas. So I think we'd like to have a little bit of a time for just some discussion or sharing of ideas. Is anybody, so we're hoping to hear from at least one. We're hoping to hear from at least one person who filled it in, just to kind of talk a little bit about what idea you had, the process of filling in the Canvas, and I don't know, just a little bit about that process.
And it looks like Laura in the chat is volunteering. So
Excellent.
take it away, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Guys, so I'm at Emory, and we actually do have an Office of Sustainability. I've been working towards this for, I think, about 10 years now. So I think we're kind of ahead of the game because we have a centralized group. Unfortunately, our Office of Sustainability is not really well funded. It doesn't have its own staff. It relies on a lot of student work. So a lot of the work, they put out the information, and departments are supposed to kind of take it on their own and really kind of run with it. And as such, I work in the special collections, and we do a lot of events, which we try to keep as zero waste as possible, and they meet the guidelines for that. But one of the things that we find is that a lot of departmental meetings are held in our space. And though we try to push for zero waste lunches, inevitably we come in and we find, lots of garbage left behind, stuff that doesn't fit into. To back up a little bit, one of the initiatives that we recently had was they took away our general garbage cans. So we only have a variety of recycling and compost. And if they don't fit in there, you're just kind of left to more or less take it home in some cases. And so my sustainability proposal was to really kind of focus on setting zero waste as a necessary point for having lunch meetings in our spaces. And I think our key partners would be our caterers, the department heads, the Office of Sustainability offers liaisons who can stand by the garbage cans and point out where you put the variety of garbage options. We'd also need help from library leadership and the lunch attendees, mainly the library leadership, to say that you have to do this. You can't just leave us with stuff to clean up. The targeted participants, again, would be leadership, staff members and attendees who come to these, the people who order the catering, as well as our facility staff and custodians. And a metric of success would be more usage of our compostable options. We do have a list of priority caterers that offer compost plateware and forks, things like that. A lessened waste for staff removal, because we know that these meetings tend to not be zero waste because they leave the boxes of garbage behind. And if they didn't, our facility staff would actually take them with them. So we know when they don't do that. And also to meet the Office of Sustainability guidelines for zero waste events. Did that work?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I love that idea to make those lunches zero waste. I think that's great, and thanks for sharing. I think we can also, if anyone has any questions, that we can also address those at this time. And we're hoping that if you're comfortable and you are on Twitter, you could consider tweeting out a screenshot of the sustainability canvas that you filled in. And you can use the hashtags included below to engage with the conference, to up the conference engagement, and then also to engage with our kind of online presence. You can also at Terence and myself down at the bottom.
I think we have time for one more. If anybody wants to go next, I think we have time for a quick another project proposal, because hearing from each other is one of the best possible outcomes for this. Does anybody want to volunteer? Melanie volunteers? Please take it away, Melanie.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Okay. I'm not sure how to unmute my video right now.
I
but-
did unmute you and we can now hear you, Melanie. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Well, you can just look at my Jack Nicholson smile in my library from last year. So I'm Melanie Hughes. I'm a librarian at Indiana University Southeast, which is in New Albany, Indiana, across from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm the education librarian, and I'm also the faculty sponsor for the sustainability club on campus. So I was trying to merge those two in my mind, and you all mentioned sustainable story hours, and then I was like, who else could I involve? We had an upcycled art show in the library a few years ago that our sustainability club members put on. But I was thinking getting our students involved as much as possible, because we need as many sustainability experts as we can in our state, and the more involved they get, the more purpose they have, I think the better. So so the stakeholders for us would be our Grenadiers, which is our sustainability club, our honors students, our education students, and Dirtbags, which is our art club. And then the librarians involved would be me as the education librarian, and Courtney, who's my outreach librarian, to get the word out on our social media. And then, because we're a public university, we have to involve the police and administration in a program involving children if there are people under 18 involved. It's paperwork, but it's stuff we have to do for safety. And so the target participants would be children K-5, and I would see that these would be public children. We're a public university. Our students' children, or commuter campus, faculty, staff. So the metric of success would, of course, be having attendees at the event, children, parents, families. One thing I thought of would be if we had more community borrowers cards as a result, because we would encourage people to join our library. And then looking at student involvement, and then having cool upcycled art projects that we could have in the library. So that was just my quick little sketch for y'all.
I love that idea. And that's a new idea for me. Very exciting. And it's nice to have sustainability as a positive as well, and give people a reason to get excited about it. Thank you so much for coming. If you'd like, connect with me or Eric, or both of us through Twitter, and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we're at time, so thanks everybody, and enjoy the rest of the conference.